Everyone, so Expo Router version 5 was released. Let's look at it. The most powerful way to build full stack native apps. Expo Router version 5 is here. Now stable, faster and full stack ready. Build universal apps with React server function, API routes and better error logging. At Expo, we believe in building truly great software that runs where it matters most. Our state-of-the-art framework Expo Router version 5 is now officially stable and has some incredible new feature. This release is focused primarily on stability and reliability on native, more full stack functionality and performance improvements everywhere, improved errors and logging. We completely redesigned React Native's default error logging in Expo CLI. Stack traces are now human readable, no more long URLs, more useful frame prints, a code preview. The no bridge tag has been removed. API routes in production. In Expo Router version 3, we introduced experimental support for API routes in Expo Router, enabling devs to build and ship full stack universal apps with the best modern practices and APIs. While this worked great in development, production release got even more complicated. Because shipping is so fundamental to Expo, we added first class support for deploying servers with your native build. We build EAS hosting with universal app deployment in development in mind. You can enable server output in your app.json and toggle the experimental Expo unstable deploy server environment variable to automatically build, deploy and linked version deployments to your app. This will set the window.location.origin to the server origin in production and ensure fetch requests are made relative to this origin. You can also log the origin to a given URL by defining it in your app.json to enable unversioned access to the latest endpoints. We are continuing to build out this functionality to create the best universal app development platform ever made. Share your experience and feedback with us to improve the system. React Server Functions Beta, first announced at ReactCon 2024. React Server Functions are coming to Expo Router. React Server Functions and components will enable best-in-class server-driven UI for everyone across all platforms. With React Server Functions, you can easily create type server endpoints that have access to secret environment variables from your .env file. This makes authentication substantially easier. So here they have given one example. React Server Functions are like API routes but with first class React and TypeScript support. They respect platform extension like .ios.ts when invoked from an iOS client. They have support for process.env.expo.os to determine which client they are rendering for, and they can return JSX that is streamed to the client. You can render components on the server and stream them down to the client. You can use the use server hook as well, which can be used on the client by invoking and wrapping with a suspense, so something like this. React server features can be deployed to EAS hosting, the same as API routes. We love using React server functions in Expo Router and have built a number of open source demos with it already. Learn more in React server components in Expo. Enable the feature in the app.json. React 19 plus Expo Router version 5 uses React 19, which means you can migrate forward ref to standard components and leverage the new state management improvements like use. With the Expo SDK 53, the new React Canary version is 19.1, which you can enable to use the new owner stack system. Owner stack in Expo will show you even more frames that are closer to the original React error, making it much easier to locate well-known issues such as unwrapped text or undefined components. Enable the experimental React Canary in the app.json like so. We plan to make React 19.1 the default version in Expo Router version 6 and SDK 54 later in 2025. React 19.1 is used by default with React server features. Linting as part of our improved error handling, we also improved the default rules in our ESLint config and enabled it by default in the starter template. React issues like missing keyprop for elements in iterator will now be shown inline during development, making it easier to spot and fix before issues occur at runtime. We have also restricted use of certain CJS features, such as require when not importing an asset to move users towards modern ESM language features that can be better optimized by export rechecking. You can also now use npx expo.lint as drop-in replacement for npx ESLint, but with Expo first defaults to ensure speed and efficiency when using it. React compiler using npx expo lint will prepare your project for React compiler, which can be used to dramatically improve performance in your app by automatically memoizing components. This is used for Expo Router as screen transitions will be noticeably be more performant. In app redirection, authentication and authorization are both fundamental features in many apps. With Expo Router version 5, we have added first class primitives for working with both. Traditional web authorization works by validating the request on the server before returning access to content or screens from the server. However, native apps traditionally work by shipping all layout and UI logic locally, meaning any user has access to the source code for all screen at all times. To account for this, we have introduced a number of primitives: API route, secure environment variable, server driven UI with React server component, and client side routing helpers. If you have components that you wish to protect, you can conditionally render this on the server and stream them down when an unauthorized request is made using React server function in Expo Router. When you have a route that differs all authorized logic, but you don't want users to navigate to it at runtime, you can use the new stack.protected semantic to automatically perform client-side redirects of entire groups of requests. This feature requires some re-architecture to create an incremental local representation of the navigation tree that is reconciled after all components have been mounted. Resetting navigation state: when a user signs out of your app, you will likely want to erase as much in memory state as possible. This is traditionally pretty challenging in a native app because you need to keep track of all possible state and globals. In Expo Router, you can simply call location.reload to reload the Hermes engine and clear all runtime React JavaScript state. This is akin to how the web works when your server navigate to the unauthenticated page. Performing a full reload ensures all in memory JavaScript is cleared and no state can be leaked to unauthorized users. By leveraging the standard web API, we reduce the risk of breaking changes between releases. Server redirects: you can now configure server redirects and rewrites statically in the app.json. This is great for migration and supporting brownfield projects. You can define matchers using the Expo Router file convention and server redirects to different outputs. This config is only used on the server. Client-side navigation on both native and web will require client-side redirect logic. In addition to these redirects, native apps will only use the server redirects when making fetch requests to the server. ES hosting will pick up the redirects logic and apply it automatically. Learn more in static redirects. Anchor route: initial route name is now called anchor. An anchor route is a route that is always rendered in a stack. When you deep link to a model, it could render differently to when you client navigate to the same route. In these cases, you need to design navigation more conditionally to allow for different initial experiences. An anchor route enables you to indicate that all other routes in a stack should be able to dismiss back to the anchor. In app navigation, will now always navigate relative to the anchor route. Pushing smarter: when pushing routes in a stack, there have been historically been 3 different strategies. We have reduced this to 2 strategies and mark the third as dangerous. Push a new screen every time. This is useful for content driven apps like social network where you continuously add to the stack. Push or pop to the nearest screen. This is useful for books where you want to pop back to chapter 1 from chapter 2 instead of pushing a duplicate copy. A third behavior was introduced in React Native where you would push a duplicate route by first removing it from the stack and adding it to the top of the stack. This behavior does not have first class support on iOS and caused issues with UI navigation controller that led to freezing. We have now removed this behavior by default but allowed it to be dangerously accessed for legacy cases under the dangerously singular flag. We strongly advise against using this behavior as it's neither ergonomic nor supported natively. Additional improvements: use the new prefetch prop in the link component to eagerly load a route ahead of time and improve page transition performance. Streams API: readable stream, writable stream, transform stream is now available on all platforms. Added a Babel polyfill for import.meta URL syntax to better support libraries on ESM. Metro now uses ESM packages exports by default. You may need to configure your Metro config.js to support libraries that haven't migrated yet. Package.json subpath imports are now supported. You can use this as an alternative to tsconfig paths. Improved support and bug fixes for tree shaking in Expo. Bundling now starts 4x faster than before. with a new lazy crawling architecture in Metro. Bundling no longer slows down in monorepos or projects with iOS Android directories generated. This is in addition to the 15x resolver speed up from the last release. Adding npx expo serve command for testing production servers locally after running npx expo export. Projects using expo dev client can now be deployed to test flight, enabling you to easily create and share custom expo go like apps with your team. Unstable settings, initial route name is now unstable settings.anchor. The previous name will continue to work for migration process purpose. Last but not least, environment variables now support HMR in development, meaning you no longer need to restart Expo CLI to see these changes. Router version 5 protected routes livestream. Mark Lawler, the father of Native Wind, an essential member of the Expo Router team, joined Keith Kurek for a live stream about how to use protected routes in Expo Router version 5. Protected screens allow you to prevent users from accessing certain routes using client-side navigation. If a user tries to navigate to a protected route, or if a screen becomes protected while it is active, they will be redirected to the anchor route using the index screen or the first available screen in the stack. Give this video a watch to see all different use cases for protected routes in Expo Router today. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.